Good morning. My name is Kyle Houchins. I'm a technical trainer for McNeil, and this is Getting Started. Rhino, supposed to be for Mac, but eagle-eyed viewers will notice I have a little Windows thing going on down here, and I think you will forgive me. The reason I'm doing this, if you're super eagle-eyed, you'll know up in the corner here you're seeing a WIP icon. You're also noticing that the layout of the window is a little different. The colors of the window are a little different. Things are a little different. Like, this is not quite what you were expecting for Rhino 8. That's because it's Rhino 9. Shh. I'm being cheeky, and I'm showing an early preview of Rhino 9. There's a few things in here that I'm excited about, and I want to show you. So I think you'll forgive me for this not being Mac. The thing about Rhino 8 and definitely Rhino 9, the interface between the two has unified dramatically. So I think going forward, we probably will be less focused on, is this a Mac demo? Is this a PC demo? It's going to be just a Rhino demo. And so I think I'm going to be bold and say that this is the first one that we're going to try and just unify the whole thing, and we're all going to hold hands and say this is just Rhino and it doesn't matter what platform you're on. But there's a couple of things that I want to show in here that I think are super exciting. The first thing I want to talk about is this pretty simple Signet model. Now, before anybody starts coming at me in the comments, I'm not a jeweler. I've never worked in the jewelry industry. Most of my career has been spent in the toy and automotive industry. So if any of there's jewelers out there and you're rolling your eyes through the entire thing, or you're picking up your laptop and frisbeeing it across the room, I apologize for triggering you, but this is an interesting object. Right? The signet ring shape is an interesting object. And the reason that I picked this is because there is a very unique modeling thing that happens on a signet ring. And I want to talk about that from a layout point of view. And so let's talk strategy to start with. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to take a quick screenshot of this, and let's pop this into a paint program. Probably could have just used the snipping program, but that's fine. Actually, let's just do that. So let's just screenshot this. And we've got an interesting thing here, right? We've got a shape around the top. Then we've got a shape here. And then we've got an exterior shape. And if we were just focusing on this in half, right? Let's just say we're focusing on this half. We can say, well, let's start trying to figure out what our topology is and what our layout's going to be, and all try and get there, right? So this top is different than the bottom, right? So let's just say we're going to split it here, right? This is easy. This is just a two rail sweep, right? So we know that. That's easy. This is just a shape, right? And we're just going to wing it around a couple of curves, right? There's a curve here and a curve here, and we're just going to, so that's easy. Okay, this is easy. We've got just a planar shape up here, right? We can just make a planar shape. So then we say, okay, well, we've got a curve from here to here. So we're gonna draw this curve, and we're gonna draw that curve. And then I've got a curve from here to here, so I'm gonna draw that over there. Now that leaves this little pair of pants right here. and that's where the fun begins, because what do we have? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 corners. And 6 corners, let's just say, okay, or six edges, that's not 4 edges, right? And building in Rhino, we always want to use 4 edges. So what if we say, okay, well, let's split it in half? Well, that didn't buy us anything, because we've still got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we lost an edge, but we still got a 5-sided shape. And then you can say, okay, well, what if we break it like this, and then we say that there's a surface here, and there's a surface here, and then that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, you can do that. But what if we looked at this, we backed up a little bit, and we looked at this a little differently. And let's clear all this out. And we said, this shape is given, right? We're good with this shape down here. That, we don't need to worry about this. This we've got handled. So this, we're good down here. This, we're good. We know how to do that. But this is where the complication begins. And if we split this in half and we say, okay, let's focus on what this thing is going to do. We could go through all of the hassle of trying to, come up with that four-sided topology and all that kind of stuff. But we're going to have matching down this, we're going to have matching down this seam that we have to worry about. We're going to have matching across the center line we're going to have to worry about. We're going to have matching that we have to get it here across. And if this curve is off, this highlight's going to get all weird and all that kind of stuff, right? So that becomes super complicated. And so what we want to do is we want to think about what is the easiest solution here. And the easiest solution sometimes is massively overbuilding the surface and then using just a portion of it. And if we look at this like this, and let me switch pen colors so that we can talk about this a little bit. If we look at this and we say 1, 2, 3, 4, and we come all the way across here, come around the back, and we do this, now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, four-sided surface, right? Whoop, whoop, like that. Now, we can take this one step further and we can say, okay, the topology on this is going to be a circle at the top, and it's going to be a skinnier circle underneath. And I was talking to a jeweler the other day, and they said they refer this particular formula for the build as the hot dog build, or the hot dog shape, or the hot dog topology, or whatever, which I thought was interesting because if you actually look at it from the top view, it looks like this. So they call that a hot dog. Okay, so we've got a shape here and we've got a shape here, and we know that all we need to do is just connect this like that. Well, what's the easiest way to do that? The easiest way to do that is to actually build a shape like this, build a shape like that, and then use blend surf to let that figure that out on its own. Like that. So once we have this shape, then the whole rest of the build becomes really, really easy. And when I was full transparency, I usually don't practice these type of demos. I usually just do them blind, and so that I'm making mistakes and stuff along the way. This one I actually did practice because there is a specific formula on how you build this type of thing, and I wanted, to get it right and not look like a complete idiot like I do for some of my videos. But the idea was I wanted to really understand this formula so that I could explain it so that we could talk about it in a way that makes sense. Okay, so we're going to build this first shape right here. So we're going to get this one done. And then this becomes very elemental, right? And then we've got a circle that we're going to trim in this direction, which is going to leave us with that shape, and then we just do another blend surface around here, and we're pretty much done. Okay? Now, that's probably like a 10-minute demo, and we will do that. But I'm going to expand a little bit and show you some other options on how to do this. There is actually another layout for this, and if I take another screenshot here, if we wanted to get super, super technical about this, and we could say, okay, we are actually going to build topology for each one of these shapes, and we're going to really explicitly lay this thing out with nothing to chance, and I want to be able to control every joint, every intersection, and I want to be able to just meticulously go through and do this. Okay, that means that we do actually need to lay this thing out You guys can see how much coffee I drank this morning to get ready and how shaky my hands are. It's like a Charles Schultz drawing. We're going to come through here and lay out specific curves. Now, if we do it this way, which we can, we're going to be stuck with a 5-sided surface. Okay, and we got to figure out how to do that. There is a superhero that's going to come save us later when we get to this part of this demo, and there's a new tool in Rhino called New Patch or whatever we're going to name it. It's essentially, the patch tool used to suck, and now we have a new patch tool, and it's amazing. So I want to show that, and we're gonna do this 5-sided layout and do that. But let's do the easy one first. So I'm going to hide this, and you guys can make fun of me later because this is probably not going to match because I'm just going to wing it off of this now. So let's change this, hide that. So let's go to shaded mode. And I purposely didn't show the topology on the other one because I wanted to talk about it first. But let's do the layout. And we're going to start with a circle. I'm not going to measure anything. Don't come at me in the comments. I'm just going to wing it because this is a demo and we're just going to go from there. So we've got our basic shape like this. I'm going to split this one in half because that's going to make up the bottom part of our ring. And then the top part, I'm going to lay this out kind of, I want this to kind of be, make sure I got Smart Track on. I want this to kind of line up like that. And then we're going to do a shape like that. And we're going to go to perspective view, and we're going to use gumball to just revolve that. We're going to pull it up a little bit. Okay, so this is our basic layout. And if I take and make some proxy objects, and I'm going to make a curve that goes in this direction. Oops, I'm going to do that at the end. Like that, and like that. Lots of blending. So we're going to do lots of blending, and we're going to use lots of proxy objects. So I'm going to blend curve between here and here. And you can see that that gives me a curvature blend. Sure, let's just do that. And then we're going to go here and here, and that's a curvature blend. So this is giving us kind of half of what we need, right? And so now we have to figure out what this shape is right here, and we can do that with, I'm going to use a rectangle from the center, and we're going to round it, and we're going to start at 0. And we're going to come out here like this to snap to that. And then we're going to pull this out about that far. And then we're going to round it in. Now, if we were being super crazy technical about this, this curve is actually a polycurve, right? Because it's a degree 1, degree 2 thing that's joined together. And this is... it is not. So this is a degree 2 curve. That's degree 1, that's degree 1, that's degree 2, that's degree 2. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's fine. Don't worry about it. I didn't know anything about degrees until I was a professional modeler for like, 15 years. So don't sweat it. We may want to take this and join it. And there is a new command in Rhino 9 called Elmo right now. And it's going to get renamed, but it's essentially a rebuild command. And basically what it does is it's a new algorithm for rebuilding stuff. And if I pull this up, you can see, the interface is kind of whippy right now, so this is probably gonna get better. So right now, if we do a 4-3, point count 4, degree 3, that's a degree 1 curve, you can see that you get a really nice curve. And if you've used our rebuild in the past, you would know that if I ran this in 8, this would look like garbage. And so this curve is really nice. And so let's crank our point count up a little bit. And maybe we go 8. And that's giving us a much nicer curve. And I might run with that instead of using this. And then I might do just a tiny bit of point adjustment if I were to grab all of these points right here and scale those to 0. I'd flatten that out. And if I were to grab all these points here and flatten that out to 0, I get a different shape, right? And if I look my curves are a little bit more compatible. And if I were to Elmo this one, again, it's probably going to end up being rebuild. And let's see, let's delete the inputs. Now I've got two curves where the topology matches fairly nicely. Okay. So now I need to get on with the building of the shape. And I can decide whether I like this shape or whether this is too big. And I'm feeling like that's a little bit too big like that. So let's redo those. I'm feeling like I want that to kind of arc in a little bit more. So we're just going to redo our blend. And we can just blend curve here to here. I like that kind of shape a little better. Like that, okay? Get rid of those. So now I've got this shape and this shape. These are kind of neither here nor there. I'm going to just use them as a reference, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to extrude that this direction. I'm going to extrude that direction. Now, this gave me solid objects, so I'm going to just Shift-Control-Click. On a Mac, it would be Shift-Command-Click, and delete those. And it gives me two cups. I can then use Blend Surf and blend those together. And I'm going to just adjust my shape a little bit. And you can see that we're curvature. If we go to wireframe mode, you can see that's remarkably close to what our curves were, right? So we know that this is in pretty good shape. And you can see that this thing looks really nice now. That five-sided surface is no longer an issue because it's not a five-sided surface anymore. If we take and use the gumball as a cutter, whoop, let's cut it in both directions. It doesn't want to cut that, that's fine. Let's trim that out. Now our five-sided surface is not a problem. It's done. We can delete that. We can delete that. I can run the cap command on that. And we are like just about done, right? It's the world's shortest demo. 18 minutes. Thank you for coming. No. So now I can go and I can start putting the rest of this together. Now there's a seam here. So if I don't want to deal with the seam, which I might not want to, I'm going to cut this in half. And I'm going to mirror this. And now I've got two sides that are nice and clean. And then I can go from here to here. Don't necessarily need all those interior shapes. And so now if I go to my front view, I can use my sliders and I can just adjust kind of what I want this shape to look like. Now, is it perfect? No, and I'm not super concerned about it being perfect. I'm just concerned about it being kind of in the right direction. I probably want to do this in wireframe. And I may pull this a little bit and adjust these guys a little bit. And then I want to adjust the shape of this. Now, I might not even want to go curvature. I might want to just go tangency because that makes it easier to adjust, right? And I can say, well, I want the bottom to kind of be right in here, like that. And that gives me my shape. I can join this up. And then the last thing I need to do is just figure out how to deal with the center. Now, if I had a specific size, if I had a specific ring size, and this is the one concession I'll make to the only thing I know about jewelry, is if you had a specific ring size, then this is where you would go and probably do one more cut, right? If this is a 6 or if it's a 6.5 or whatever, this is where you would do your scaling. This part right here where it goes on your finger, these are specific sizes in jewelry. And so let's say that this is a 6.75. Okay, whatever. We'll call it that. Jewelers are jumping on the web. Comments on the YouTube channel are going to blow up. That's fine. I'm not trying to tell you how to be a jeweler. I'm telling you how to model jewelry. You are the jeweler. You should figure it out. All right, so let's chain this, and we're going to just do a blend surface through here. And we're going to auto chain this. And for some reason, that is not completing. Interesting. Let's take a look at our edges and see if we've got, if I didn't mirror it or do something weird. No, it looks fine. I mentioned this is the work in progress version, right? For some reason, it looks like this edge and this edge are disjoint somehow. All right, we'll deal with it. So let's back that off. And then we'll just do a 2-rail sweep here. And we can set that to be tangent, tangent, and maintain height, and say OK. And we join it up. And that should give us a closed poly surface, which it does. Okay, so now that we've got that sorted, and you can see that this shape changed a little bit because we did that rebuild. Maybe we don't want that. Maybe we want that to be, you know, really specifically oval and all that kind of stuff. We can do merge all coplanar faces. That's going to bring this back to being a single face because it was 2 faces because we mirrored it. And then we can use the inset command to generate a curve. And this is something that was new in 8. And then we can use push-pull to push this down a little bit. And then we can do some sub-object surface modeling where we can control-shift or control, or shift-command or shift-control, depending on which platform you're on. And we can do a little bit of sub-object modeling. And then if we wanted to, we could then do our blend edging. And if maybe we even want to replace this with a blend surface instead of a, so that it's got your fillet thing going on there. And then we say OK. All right, and then we bring our Rhino logo back. And we scale that down. And we stick it to right there. Hide that one. And we render. Okay, and we've got that shape. Now, notice the quality of this surface. Because this surface was all built in one piece, our center lines are really, really nice. There's a new zebra in Rhino 8. And if we go to shaded view, wireframe view, and we zebra this, there's all sorts of new displays for zebra. There's a distance. There's all sorts of new options in here. You can set it up to be static. So if you want to do a static display, this rainbow one tends to be really useful. You can see how the highlights are tracking through that center line right there. That's actually really very good. Very clean all the way around through there. Okay, so other stuff, there's a dot display. There's a grid. The grid's really nice if you're doing some high-end surfacing like a car or something like that. There's a radial one, which is similar to what you're used to. And then stripes, which is just your zebra. You can rotate them, see what it does. There's a size, frequency, all this kind of stuff. So zebra's new for 9. Super nice, super useful. So that's 26 minutes we made this. Okay, so let's talk about what we would want to do if we use this different layout. So let's just for fun, let's take this and tuck it over here. And then let's lay it out again. But let's do it a little more surfacey. So let's do this. Let's do this. That's our innie outie. We're going to take this and cut it off here. I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to just bring this up, copy it by tapping Alt or Option on a Mac. Rotate this 90. I'm going to scale this in a little bit. Shift drag, make that a little bigger. Move it up. And then I'm going to copy paste this down here. I'm going to scale this up to there. And I'm going to scale this skinnier like that. And that gives us that's our hot dog. And I'm referring to hot dog this because this is what it looks like from top view. Okay, so we got to make our little proxy objects for the edges on this thing. So we're going to go here and here. And then we're going to blend from here to here. All right, and so then we've got this shape here. And then we need another proxy object that starts at this quad, because we're going to do this in a quad. And then we're going to do the same thing here. And again, the bottom of this is easy. We don't need to do anything to the bottom of this because it's just a 2-rail sweep or a blend or whatever, we need to do. But we need to generate whatever this curve is. Like that. And then we need to generate the curves that go from here to here. So if we were to take this object and we were to trim that curve and that curve, that gives us those two shapes. So then I need a proxy object going in this direction, and I need a proxy object going in that direction, and then I'm going to blend between here and here. And this, I'm going to want to do something like that. Holding down Shift to adjust both of those. And you can see I get that curve in there, right? So now I can get rid of this and this. I need to split this curve by point at the center line. And I need to split this curve here and here. And so now I've got this shape, right? And then if I were to complete this, I would need to make the bottom shape of this, which means I probably need to move and mirror this. And then I need to blend this one and this one. And again, I'm not super, super crazy wild concerned about the exact shape of this because at the end, I am going to come back and trim this with a specific size, circle or whatever. Okay, so that's that shape. And this is going to go from here to here. And so let's get rid of the ones that we don't need. Don't need that one, don't need that one, because we're going to make this patch like this. Okay, so let's focus on this right now. So this is our 5-sided shape, and this is complicated, right? But we're going to do the exact same thing that we did with blending, but we're going to do this with surfaces instead. So let's take and make a proxy surface here. Let's make a proxy surface here. Let's make a proxy surface here, and all the directions that we need to be tangent. See that? So we got to be tangent across the center line. Don't really need to worry too much about that one because this is just going to be positioned, so I'm going to leave that one a curve. This one just needs to be positioned, so I don't need to really worry about that one too much because we're going to actually build off of that or trim it or whatever and then build a, whatever. But I do need to be tangent here, here, and here. It's got to be tangent top to bottom, it's got to be tangent side to side, and it's got to be tangent across the center line. In comes patch. Dun, 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 dun. This used to be an absolute hot garbage tool. It used to not join. It would make good surfaces. Let's give it its fair shake. It would make good surfaces, but the edge conditions were always problematic for how to join. And so what you can see here is when this opens up, I've got continuity labels. If I click on the continuity label, I can change the continuity. So in this case, let's just start with G1. That's going to be G0 and G0. So positional continuity here and here. Tangent, tangent, tangent. Let's run it. It brings up a dialog box, which then makes a surface. And you can see down here, the G0 constraint is met and the G1 constraint is met. If I change this to G2, it's going to rebuild. It's now G2. G2, a little more complicated surface, but it's doing it. And that gives us our surface with all three continuities met. Now, there's some UV control in here. There's some tolerances. We can change how the spans are rotated. We can change, if we weren't getting the continuity that we needed, we can adjust the spans. We can also adjust the degree. So if that's a degree 5 surface right now, I can take this down to degree 3. You can see that we're still meeting our conditions. Why degree 5? Because degree 5 at single span is 6 points in each direction. So it's 6 by 6. So we've also got a stiffness value that we can come in here and start messing with. I'm going to set this back to G1 because we don't need G2. Notice that this is iterative. Notice that I can play with this and mess with it. I'm going to bring the degree up a little bit more. Notice how the UVs are starting to lay out on this really nicely. So my G0, G1 is met here. Now, here's a cool thing. I'm going to cancel this for the time being. There is actually, you can put reference lines in this thing. And if you wanted to say, for instance, let's say I were to split this way, and I were to set a curve. Is this a trim surface? It will be, yes. So if I put a curve in here that was a reference, right, and I were to build, I wanted my tangency to come off of this at a specific angle. I can actually come in here and put a reference curve in the center of this. And let's adjust this. And let's say we wanted a very specific kind of shape through that center. Or we wanted to be able to control it. We can turn history on even. Let's run it again. We want to make sure we pick the surface edges because that's what the continuity is. If you pick a curve, it's only G0. Check this out. That's an internal curve or an inference curve. So now that's a reference. So that now gives you the ability to be able to control that. And if I turn the points on for this, it's going to recalculate. So I can actually use that as a sculpting medium to say, I want that shape to bulge out a little bit there, or I want it to bulge in a little bit there. I'm going to pause for the applause. Let everybody go crazy over that one because that's really cool to be able to do that. So now I can come in here with these sculpting curves and really fine tune this thing. So if I go to the front view, I can say, well, that shape is kind of drooping a little bit. Let's pull these points over a little bit, straighten that out. And that highlight's going to change. And I can say, I don't really like that. I'm going to put it back over where it was. Or maybe I want that highlight to change a little bit and come this way, modify the bias. That's starting to feel really interesting. And if I go into rendered mode, I can see the highlights on that, how that's looking. And if I decide I don't want that, and go back to my constraint and say add remove, just take that out. Control click it. It's no longer part of the equation. It's going to recalculate. So you can add a constraint, and the constraint can be a curve, it can be a point. So you can actually use a point to modify and pull that thing around like you could with the old patch. And then we're going to say OK. Okay, so now we go back to shaded mode. Get rid of these. Now we can mirror this. We can mirror it again. Join this up. Apply material to it, and then take a peek. Easy to lie with the material, so let's look and see what it looks like with the new zebra. Yeah, we're good here. In fact, I actually like the highlights. The way the highlights are tracking through that center, I like that a little better than the other one. Now that we have this part done, the rest of this is just going to fall together, right? I mean, the top, we just cap it. The bottom, we just blend surf it. This one, boop, chain. We just use our sliders. Get it close-ish. Tangent, tangent, fine. This is going to be printed and polished anyways. We'll get our, whatever our final ring size is. We'll say it's whatever that is. Because it's easy and I'm a cheater. So now we've got our final size in there. All that's left to do is just blend in the edges. We'll set that to same height. Drop that. We can even overblow this a little bit and go 0.1. That way that's just a hair sharper. That way it's got a nice little, it's got a little bit of crown in there, but the edges are still pretty sharp. Join it up, should be closed. Open. Where are you open? One little thing up here. I'm not even going to worry about that because we could actually do this and put a fillet on that, and that wouldn't be a problem. So we can also try the remove all naked micro edges and see if that does it, and it does. So now this is a closed polished surface. Some little futziness right in that corner, but I think probably what I would do if I was seeing that on my model, I would probably come in here and I would just loft this. And for some reason, it looks like one side of this is really complicated. Not sure why, because that should be just mirrored, but we'll just use the one that's good. Interesting. All right, whatever. So that's closed now. And then the last thing I'd do is I'd probably just blend off this edge. Ooh. I want to show you something else cool. You like this. All right, so I'm going to set this to 0.05 or whatever, something really small. Now, there is a new fillet tool in Rhino 9. Well, it's actually just a better version of the old fillet tool, which is Fillet Surf. Let's try this again. It helps if you use a value that Rhino can actually see. Okay, so what you'll see is it put a Fillet Surf in here. There is a trim, extend, and continue across face option. What continue across face does is it actually looks to see, is there a continuous edge that it can find? And in this case, there is. So what it does is it says, well, I'm going to fill it from here to here, this surface, right? We're not filleting an edge, we're filleting a surface. And then I'm going to look and say, well, there's a tangent, there's a tangency here, and so I can keep going, and there's a tangency here so I can keep going, and there's a tangency here so I can keep going. Now, here's where the fun begins. So I can take this and I can interactively edit this, and let's change our range, something like that. So now I've got a slider that I can adjust my fillet with, and I can watch it happen. Now remember, don't get crazy, because if you do a fillet that's 0.063, and this has got to be machined, your machinist is going to want to strangle you. So make sure that you're using, like, visually, like, figure out what it is, but then 0.0064 is not what you want. You want 0.007, right? So that's a round number, which means they're probably going to have a cutter for it. Because if you give them a weird number and they have to make a custom cutter, they're going to strangle you. Now, we've got some other stuff in here that's interesting, right? We can change this and make this a deformable thing. Now, if it's deformable, check this out. We can change the bias of that. Do you want it to be tangent with a bias in the middle where it's a little sharper? You can do that. And if it's a G2 blend, in this case, it doesn't look like it can do a G2 blend, so it's not giving us that option. But if it was a G2 blend, you would have not only the tangency, but you'd have a bulge. So you'd be able to control two levels of. That G2 blend is only available if the G2 blend will actually go in there. But in this case, it's going to be a deformable, which is a G1 blend. Okay. We just say okay. It completes it. Join it up. Looks like I did it twice. That's why there's two on top of each other. That's why it wasn't joining. I had two surfaces joined on top of two surfaces. Had it joined onto itself. So now that's closed. Okay. Now we can inset. I love inset. It just lets you draw kind of where you want this thing to go. And then push-pull. And then shift-control-click. And then I like just scaling stuff down, and it gives you that little chamfer for free. Or you can just pull it up and do something like that. And then you can blend this off or do whatever you want to do. We can even get crazy and now do a blend surf. And then we've got all sorts of controls in here that we can do. Stuff like this. Or if we go curvature, it gives us 2 degrees that we can mess with. But Tangent's probably plenty for what we're doing. Okay, so now we've got some real iterative power here, right? Between patch and between the new fillet surf, we've got a lot of ability to be able to come in here and iterate, and you can see we're getting really high quality stuff here. Now, is the point count for, or the span count for patch high? Yes, it can be. But look at the quality of the surface. Who cares? If you're a Class A person, yeah, you're going to sniff it. You're going to sniff at patch and say, not for me. That's fine. It's probably not for you. But for product designers and jewelry designers and people who run into, you know, these kind of common modeling pitfalls that five-sided surface, patch is going to blow your mind. There's another scenario that we're working on right now, and this is what I refer to a watchmaker's blend. And we're trying to get patch to do this, and I'm going to show it just even though we'll talk about why it's got problems, but this is a scenario that we're actually working on right now. And if we were to Boolean these things together, first of all, in 9, that Boolean worked, which it typically would, this would have a problem if it was doing this in 8 because it would struggle with that. If we do an edge blend on this and we preview this, and let's get a size that works, you'll notice that it completes this everywhere except it opens up this weird little hole. And this is a common failure in Rhino kind of style fillets. And so what we can do is come and pull this out. This used to be a nightmare to try and model around. And if we split this by isocurve to like at the end there, and we make this a little less awful hole. And the cool thing about this is it works, but I have a complaint that's actually in with the dev team right now to try and make this better, is if we run patch on this and we say go. Okay, so let's try. If we do projected, there's a couple of different styles here. We can do projected and molded, and I'll have to get somebody smarter to explain what the difference is. But if we start adding constraints in here, you can see that it's starting to find its way. And you'll notice that it actually does meet the G0, G1 requirement. If I say go, it makes the surface, and even more importantly, it joins the surface. Now, my complaint with this is, if I can find which face it's on, the highlight shape on this is not right yet. And so if you look at the highlights on this, and if we go to rendered view, and if we add a material to this, you'll notice that the shape of the highlight is not, see this little doink like that? That little puddle right there, that needs to get better. And ideally what we want is for the highlight to not dip right there. This, it looks okay at the top. There's a little weirdness right in here, but right in this area, it's a little messy. However, this is a massive improvement for what we used to have, and the fact that you can actually do it. Like if this was a thing where you had to, this was going to get printed, sanded, and hand finished, you're done. This is like way, you're done, right? And that is fabulous. Ideally, we're going to get this improved so that this highlight tracks a little nicer. Because right now, what we've got, right, the solution for this that we have currently is if we were to do a blend surf. Let's join this edge up. Oh, there's a seam right there. All right, I'm going to move this seam. There's a command in Rhino called surf seam that tons of people don't know about. So if you have the seam, right? Because the seam, what was happening is this is two edges. I don't want two edges. I want the seam to not be there. So I'm going to move it someplace else where it's not in the way. And now I've got one edge. So if I blend between here and here, notice that the highlights are almost perfect, right? See how they're tracking really beautifully through there? But this is the contingency right here. It doesn't match this, nor will it. And you're going to go down a really deep rabbit hole if you try to model around this. So that is the correct highlight. See how that's like tracking correctly, but you can't join it at the ends. And so this is the limitation of the current thing. If I just run that and say, so now then I say, okay, well that's right, but this doesn't fit. And then I got to, start chewing back into this and try and blend from the blend and all that kind of stuff. You can do it, but it's a hassle. It'd be so much easier if Patchy just went boop, 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 done, and Patch went okay and gave you like highlights that track nicely. But that's a current issue that's open. We're trying to solve and get that done. So if it can solve this kind of scenario, that becomes a super, super, super useful tool. All right. Any other questions? Any questions on any of that? Any questions on what we saw so far? I think I'm done at this point. And if we bring all of this stuff back and talk about the difference between this one and this one in the style of build, and we can look and see which one we like better. Now, granted, the shape on this one got a little away from me with the rebuild. I didn't have enough points in here, so it's a little like little octagon-y, but the easy version, the still easy but a lot more control version, I'll let you decide which way you want to go with that. Okay? So any questions on any of that so far before I let you go? I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you forgive me for this not being Mac, and I hope the stuff that we showed out of 9 is fun. So if you want to try 9, by the way, go to our website, rhino3d.com. Go to the download page. It's the Serengeti build. You can grab that here, and I'll show you where it is. It's here, download Serengeti build. If you're a Rhino 8 license holder, grab Rhino 9, give it a shot. Okay? Twyla says, this was interesting but didn't feel beginner. For someone starting with jewelry, do you have recommendations? Yes, I would recommend for everybody who is getting started to go to Help Learn Rhino, Tutorials and Samples. It's built into Rhino. Do the level 1 training guide. Double click it. It's going to open a PDF. This is the level 1 training guide. This will take you through everything you need to know. If you are staring at a blank screen, just bought Rhino and trying to figure out what in the world you're doing, this is going to be your best start. Once you get through that, do the level 2. All of the manual and all of the sample models that go with it are built into Rhino. Just double click to open the PDF, double click to open the model, and it'll open that for you. Okay? Everybody skips this. The level 1, level 2 stuff is amazing. Make sure that you do it. It's really good. Okay? All right. Any other questions? Cool. Thanks, Frank. Thanks for the kind words. I appreciate that. Alrighty, I'll let you go. My name's Kyle Houchins, technical trainer for McNeil. This is Getting Started Rhino 8. Actually, it's Rhino 9. Getting Started Rhino 9. Preview Rhino 9. Go make great stuff. Thanks for watching. Bye.